At this time, we would like to proceed to the keynote lecture. We welcome from Professor Murakami, Shuzo Murakami, who will speak about new development of SDGs for regional revitalization. Professor Murakami is from the Institute for Building Environment Energy Conservatism. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me share my screen. Do you see my PowerPoint slides? May I proceed? Let me begin. At this time, as noted, I will address new developments of SDGs for regional revitalization, together with innovative approaches taken by the under the auspices of the Cabinet Office. I have 6 issues that I would like to address. One is comprehensive revitalization strategies for cities, people, and careers, SDGs Future City, public-private partnerships, non-autonomous virtuous cycles, finance framework, and COVID-19 measures. Every year, the Cabinet Office organizes international forum. Today is the 12th forum of its kind, and the ones in blue boxes are relevant to the environment, and the pink boxes show fora in the context of SDGs. There were some which were held outside of Japan, for example, Portland, Oregon. And so today is the 3rd International Forum SDGs for Regional Revitalization. I would like to speak about the 3 pillars SDGs action plan from 2009 to 2014. We have the first phase, and then we have the second phase. More than 10 years ago, environmental breakthrough became a concept under which eco future city and such were promoted in order to promote 17 goals of the SDGs in the local area. We have eco future city, SDG future city, and the public-private partnerships. Furthermore, if you look at the green side, we have the concept of autonomous virtual cycle and the finance framework to be promoted locally. And this began in December 2018. And this is currently we are in the second phase. I would like to introduce the team players. We have seen government being instrumental to the effort initially, but increasingly there is more engagement by private enterprise. So there's more of a public-private partnership. As you know, the government has launched the SDGs promotions headquarters, a meeting twice a year to issue an action plan for SDGs. In 2019, there are 3 pillars: corporations, local governments, youth, and women. Local governments, in other words, are one cornerstone pillar of the government's action plan on SDGs. And this comes under the banner of SDGs, future cities. Now, I would like to refer to the policy framework issued for the first term, titled Comprehensive Revitalization Strategy for Cities, People, and Careers. One goal is to create stable jobs, make sure that there are more people moving to local communities. Thirdly, make sure that people can start families, to help people start families in local cities, and also to make sure that ensure that communities can protect safe living interregional partnerships. So if there are jobs, more people be attracted and cities will be revitalized. If there's depopulation, there will be a vacuum in cities. So as a major goal is to revitalize local economies, and to that, in that context, finance framework is something that is promoted under this concept. Let me talk about specifics at this time. Now, about SDG Future Cities, this was a project launched that took place for 3 years. This is the first cities that were selected, about 30 SDGs Future City in blue, and then 10 model cities in green. We have, for example, in green, Yokohama, Kamakura, Kanagawa, and such, in blue, as you see, many cities. And now it's 93s of 2009 team. Eventually, in 7 years, the goal of the government is to reach 210 cities by 2024. So how are the cities selected? Let me address the minimum standards or minimum criteria as disclosed. We have the left side and the right hand side. The key is to revitalize regional economies through autonomous virtual cycles. As you see, the autonomous virtual cycle is a concept that appears twice. So there's a lot of emphasis placed on local economies.
So this is a private-public partnership platform. Through the SDGs activities that we facilitate, the public-private partnership platform to drive the innovation. So those are the activities that we got involved and initiated. So as I introduced earlier, so there is the sharp spike in the number of the participants. So the private corporations represented in green, local government represented in blue. So you can see that top 4,000 participants. And next, so this is the SDGs recognition, the awareness to the SDGs, so that the government conducted surveys starting in the 2017. So in the total, there were 4 surveys conducted. So that the red indicates that don't know the SDGs, but you can see that the very sharp increase in the awareness toward SDGs, so that the blue represents that knows they are the goals and targets of the sustainable development, so that the level of the knowledge is rapidly deepened. So this is a percentage of the local government working on SDGs, so that currently the 39% of the local government engaged in the SDGs activities, so that they are setting the goals and working toward that goals that we are confident that we'll hit the target. 7%. Currently, the 70% of the local government tackles SDGs. So what is the aims of the SDGs Future City initiatives? So there are 2 objectives. The one is to set a higher peak, so that if the government select the excellent cities, the peak gets higher if we share the best practices. So that is the one objective. And also, oh, sorry, that we would like to sharing the best practice to widen the thicker base, building the more comprehensive underlying foundations. The basic goals of the policy framework for the second term comprehensive revitalization strategy for cities, people, and Korea. So there are several agenda that involved. So you can see some similarities between the previous targets. The difference is that to revitalize the local communities to be prosperous, making money. So that is a big pillar. And for that purpose, that we are very focusing on autonomous virtual cycle in the finance framework. So the government's SDGs headquarters announced that the expanded SDGs Action Plan 2019. So there are the 4 pillars involved in this one: science and technology innovation, regional cycle coexistence zero, guide for the SDGs business management. So that the bottom right-hand side, you can see the regional revitalization SDGs. And there are 2 main points for this initiative. One is the creation of the autonomous virtual cycle. The other is SDGs for the regional revitalization finance framework. So now let me introduce autonomous virtual cycles. You can see that the blue boxes represent players, and the pink boxes are the financial institutions to support these the players, so that's generating cash flows, and through the business activities that the local companies generate cash and to reinvest in creating the new businesses. The other one is that regional revitalization framework. So in the center, the regional certification and commendation of the SDGs initiatives for the regional revitalization, so that national government recognized and acknowledged the great examples, so that we will give this certification and the registration. So that is the first phase. So that we have already started phase 1. And this initiative will evolve over time. And this chart shows that corporate management in the age of the SDGs. So that means that we stress the profits and social contribution. The vertical lines is the profit. Horizontal one is the social contributions. The first quadrant is that excessive pursuit of profit. The third quadrant is that liquidation type bankruptcy. So that we even bear with the bankruptcy if that company is not making contribution. And the first quadrant belongs. The Western style corporation belongs to the first quadrant. So that the Western style corporations make the massive money, and they're very reluctant to contribute society. On the other hand, Japanese style corporations make a great social contributions, but they're very weak in generating cash. So that our objective is that we should navigate our business from the shareholders' capitalism to the stakeholder capitalism. So that a local government making great contribution to society, but the less contribution to the economies. So that we are hoping that the creation of that autonomous virtual cycle by public-private partnership. So this is the big objective of the phase 2. So that our initiatives is to support and to facilitate the mobilization from the local, the pink area to the green area. So let me sort out the corporate activities toward creation of autonomous virtual cycle. So the one is non-financial value and the social contribution. The other is the financial values and the profitable business. And these two elements together contribute to realize the corporate growth cycle. So if business activities to achieve SDGs hit these two objectives, so that we would like to drive the Japanese enterprises from the pink to the green area. So let me share with you some of the best practices, the good examples of the regional industry promotion. So the first one is the collection of the used hybrid vehicles to reassemble the electric vehicles. So this is the good example of creating the new industry and the recycling-based society. The next example is that collaboration between the forest owners and the Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank. So that Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank accept the role of the consignee and to returning profits to the forest owners. And that this example is about Osaki town. They built the recycling center. It is not very cost effective. And it is engaging in a garbage disposal, paper diaper collection. So there's a good examples that showcase the virtual cycle and the good public-private partnership. And lastly, let me introduce the proposal on the regional revitalization SDGs and COVID-19 measures. It is proposed in last year. So let me discuss the relationship between these two challenges. So there are some commonalities between these two issues. The first one is affinity between SDGs and COVID-19 measures, both aim to effect change. SDGs advocate transforming the world, so as COVID-19. The second one is global environmental risk and pandemic risk. So they both concerned the risk management. The third one is of the integrated initiative. They share the framework of economy, society, and the environment. And the fourth one is both demands the trade-offs. I mean, how we could balance and strike a very good balance between the environment, society, and economy. It discussed in the past, but it was not clear. We could not come up with clear solutions, but it's increasingly unequivocal to have both aspects. So this is SDG's wedding cake. So they are the multifaceted approach. So in the bottom, infection control, the middle is a new normal, and the top layer is economic management. So while the local government SDGs is that there are also the three layers: environmental layer, social layer, economic layer. So you can see the lot of commonalities between these two challenges. So let me introduce the new issues, the new normal. We need to design for the new normal. It's possible that abrupt change and it requires extremely urgent initiatives. And secondly, that we need to identify what parts of the new normal will or will not be rooted in society. And thirdly, the promotion of the new normal and its relation to SDGs. So in number 4, that is that we need to alleviate the trade-offs and maximize the synergy. So we need to understand macroeconomic trends on a long-term basis in a local government administration. So let me share with you that some of the macro trends. First one is the digitization that includes e-commerce and e-service, future work style, remote work, telework, changing consumer demand, resilience in medical system, and environment and social public goals. So that we need to bring that perspective to support the vulnerable part of the society. And 6, the international and national interaction. And so we need to lay out the local government SDGs in consideration of COVID-19 measures. So that identify the effects of the COVID-19 on local government administration. So that macro trend and 17 goal specific analysis. Number 2 is to develop a new local government plan for the viewpoint of the new normal. So that includes that the new normal, building the new normal as a new lifestyle, and overcome trade-off between infection control and economic development and growth. And we need to develop the program for the further revitalization by linking COVID-19 and SDGs initiatives. So that I like to emphasize, to stress I would like to stress the very strong leadership to surmount the.
Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, President Murakami. Let us now welcome from the city of Bonn, Federal Republic of Germany, Mayor Katja Dörner. Mayor Dörner has kindly sent us a video message.
Dear Minister Sakamoto, dear fellow Mayor Kitahashi, esteemed audience, thank you very much for inviting me to this year's International Forum on SDGs for Regional Revitalization. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to address you at this event. My special thanks go to our dear friends and partners at the city of Kitayushu and at the Institute for Global Environmental Studies who have facilitated this invitation. The topic of the forum addresses a very important aspect of Agenda 2030, the role of local and regional governments for its implementation. According to an OECD study, at least 65 of all SDGs targets cannot be reached without the involvement and commitment of cities and regions. International collaboration and exchange between cities can play an important role here. Cities around the globe are actively engaged in localizing Agenda 2030 and achieving the SDGs. Direct exchange between cities and learning from cities' best practices can be very beneficial on this path. We had the chance to participate in the OECD program, a territorial approach to the SDGs, together with 8 other pilot cities and regions from different continents. In the framework of this program, the city of Bonn had the opportunity for some close exchange with the city of Kitayushu, which was also one of the 9 pilots. I think that, for both of our cities, this was a very fruitful dialogue. In Bonn, we were deeply impressed by the very active engagement of the business sector for the implementation of the SDGs, which is undertaken in a joint effort with the city. We were also very inspired by learning about the voluntary local reviews that Kitayushu and other Japanese cities presented to the UN in 2018. For us, this provided the impetus to start working on our own voluntary local review. In October last year, Bonn published its first voluntary local review. As you can see, city-to-city collaboration can be very valuable for the enhancement of SDG implementation at local level. The head of our Department of International Affairs and Global Sustainability at the city of Bonn, Mr. Stefan Wagner, will give you more details about our collaboration and our initiatives for SDGs promotion in Bonn later on. Engagement for coordination across different levels of government also plays an important role for the successful achievement of the SDGs. The example of the Japanese government, which strongly supports cities as SDG future cities and eco-model cities, can serve as a role model for this type of cooperation. Within the German context, Bonn and other cities strongly advocate an increased involvement of cities in the voluntary national reviews, particularly with a view to Germany's next VLR, which is due for the upcoming UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development in July 2021. Another strong ally in this process is ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. Together with this global city network, with its headquarters based in Bonn, we have done a lot of advocacy to strengthen the role of cities in international decision processes. Cities have a multitude of tasks on the table, and 2020 was an extremely challenging year for cities around the globe. Throughout the global pandemic, cities had to take on lots of additional responsibilities. The pandemic and the safeguarding measures have an enormous impact on people's life and on our economic perspectives. However, we cannot risk reducing our endeavors for achieving the SDGs. In the light of the current global pandemic, it has become crystal clear that our strategies need to be different, more holistic, always taking into account multiple goals. Addressing health, climate, nature, and land needs to always incorporate social equality and the planetary boundaries in a comprehensive approach. I'm therefore happy to see that cities and networks all around the globe continue the tremendous efforts they are undertaking for the implementation of Agenda 2030. For now, I wish you a very fruitful dialogue at your forum, and I'm sending you my warmest regards from Bonn. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to this year's International Forum on SDGs for Regional Revitalization. I'm deeply honored for having the opportunity to speak at this event today. My name is Stefan Wagner. I'm the head of International Affairs and Global Sustainability at the city of Bonn. And I would like to give you a brief introduction into the implementation and the promotion of the SDGs here in Bonn. Let me briefly share my presentation with you. Bonn, to many, is still known as the former capital of Germany. The city is located in the heart of Europe, close to Brussels and Berlin. Today, Bonn is Germany's United Nations city and the second political center of the Federal Republic of Germany. As the headquarters of Deutsche Telekom and Deutsche Post, DHL, Bonn is also a strong service location in the IT and logistics sectors and part of Europe's largest science region. Last but not least, Bonn is the birthplace of our famous composer Ludwig van Beethoven, whose 250th anniversary we are celebrating this year. Over the last 2 decades, Bonn has developed into a hub for sustainable development. The United Nations are currently represented with more than 20 organizations in Bonn working towards a sustainable future. This includes the Secretariat of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Secretariat of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, the UN SDG Action Campaign, and many others. UN Bonn organizations work on climate change, land degradation, biodiversity and ecosystem services, wildlife conservation, volunteerism, health, and many others. Their common slogan is shaping a sustainable future. Besides the UN, numerous scientific development organizations are working in the fields of renewable energies and sustainable resources management in and from Bonn. The city of Bonn has been committed to sustainable development for many years. Since 2005, the city of Bonn has published a sustainability report every 2 years. The data used in this report goes back to 2002 and allows the comparison of developments over long periods of time. This year, for the first time, 11 additional indicators were included that allow a direct reference to the SDGs. In addition to the sustainability report, last year, the city of Bonn adopted its first sustainability strategy. The Bonn Sustainability Strategy establishes a direct link to the 2030 agenda and defines strategic guidelines as well as short and medium-term goals for the implementation of the SDGs in 6 selected fields of action. It thus forms a strategic and holistic framework for sustainable development of our city. The strategy was developed in a 2.5 years process together with external stakeholders from science, civil society, politics, and the business sector. Together with the Japanese city Kitakyushu, Bonn was one of the pilot cities of the OECD program on a territorial approach to the SDGs. This program aimed at supporting cities and regions to develop, implement, and monitor strategies to achieve the SDGs. And finally, this year, the city of Bonn published its first local voluntary review on the Agenda 2030 and also joined the VLR declaration of the city of New York. As already mentioned, the sustainability strategy of the city of Bonn forms a comprehensive strategic approach for the implementation of the SDGs in Bonn. The 17 SDGs are broken down into 6 thematic fields of action. These include, for example, mobility, labor and business, natural resources and environment, but also social participation and gender, amongst others. In addition, specific goals and measures are defined for each field of action. Exemplary measures of the sustainability strategy include, for example, the conversion of our bus fleet into e-mobility by the year 2030, the latest, the expansion of the use of renewable energies in Bonn, the protection of biodiversity and green spaces in the city, as well as the creation of more affordable housing. As already mentioned, the city of Bonn presented its first implementation report on the sustainability strategy, the so-called voluntary local review, in October this year. The aim of our VLR is to develop a monitoring tool for our sustainability strategy. Furthermore, the report is also thought to contribute to providing political decision makers with specific evidence-based data and figures for their decisions. Furthermore, the report also contributes to the transparency and to the promotion of dialogues with our citizens. The VLR, as you can see here on this page, takes up the 6 fields of action of our sustainability strategy. Each field touches on several of our SDGs, and therefore the VLR renders these relationships visible. It shows the connections and interactions between the municipal fields of action in Bonn and the individual SDGs. All in all, 16 out of the 17 SDGs are addressed through these focal areas. The report briefly introduces each field of action. In this regard, it is the area of natural resources and environment. It lists the goals and measures of the sustainability strategy and links these to the associated SDGs, as you can see here in the right-hand side of this slide. Each field of action is backed up by several indicators. This allows developments in the respective field of action to be presented in a comprehensible and transparent way. The VLR therefore makes it possible to identify trends and also provides concrete recommendations on developments in the various fields of action. Finally, on the last part of our VLR, the indicators for each field of action are once again presented, as you can see here, and described individually by definition. A traffic light system makes it possible to see developments at a glance and helps to judge developments and decide on actions or counter actions by political and other administrative decision makers. In addition to the sustainability reporting, the communication of the SDGs and the 2030 agenda and the dialogue with the citizens also play a major role in Bonn. The city therefore organizes a large number of events on SDGs every year. These include, for example, the Bonn United Nations Day, where every year in October, UN agencies present themselves with a colorful program in front of the Bonn City Hall. In addition, the city also organizes each year in spring the so-called Bonn SDG Days, during which various activities take place around the Sustainable Development Goals. Public art actions and advertising measures also help to promote the SDGs towards the local public. Let me finally also demonstrate some cross-sectoral topics in Bonn that help to implement the SDGs on local ground. The resolution of the Bonn City Council that the city of Bonn should become climate neutral by 2035 is accompanied by further measures in action. An extensive citizen participation process is currently taking place in which concrete proposals for climate neutrality are to be developed. In addition, the city's budget is to be more strongly oriented towards sustainability criteria in the future with the idea to have a sustainability budget in the future, the better plan for activities. As the most recent measure, the city of Bonn joined the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities at the beginning of this year. In this way, we also want to promote international exchange and networking with other cities in the field of sustainable development. And we are very much looking forward also to cooperate with cities in Japan. Let me come to the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you very much for your interest. We are really looking very much forward to get in touch with you. You can find my contact details on the left-hand side of this slide. And please do not hesitate to get in touch with us on the exchange of ideas on the further implementation of the SDGs. Thank you very much indeed.
Mayor Derner, Mr. Wagner, thank you very much. And next, let's call for Norichika Kanie, the professor of the Keio University Graduate School under the theme of the trends in the SDGs during the coronavirus catastrophe. Professor Kanie, please put your microphone and video on. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now let's share the screen. Can you see the screen, everybody? So today I'd like to discuss trends in the SDGs during the coronavirus catastrophe. So these are the developments around the SDGs. So last year, 2 years ago, there are a lot of the developments and activities. So let me summarize all these activities and developments and share my perspectives. The first one is from the proliferation to the decade of action. So it's called 2 years ago on hindsight. So that it was discussed that the 2019 SDG summit at the UN General Assembly that they declare the decade of the actions, and the COVID-19 hit our society, and that delayed and slowed all these meetings. All the assemblies in the UN were taking place virtually. So that everything was slowed. But I think that currently we are in the period of the preparation for a decade of the action. So in 2019, at the end of the 2019, that we revised that the reports in Japan, and we set up the headquarters of the SDGs, and we had the roundtable discussion, and we set up the subcommittee to think about the concrete actions to be implemented, so that the progress is slow or slower by the COVID-19, but we certainly started to take actions for the decade of action. And together with that, the summits of the climate change, that we had the summit for the SDGs. So that SDGs was coincided with the Paris Agreement, although that SDGs came first. So if you look closely to the SDGs report, so that the climate change part section in the SDGs is incorporated in the Paris Agreement. So that last year's summit confirms that there is a commonality between SDGs and Paris Agreement. Then that now that the eliminating plastics and non-coal power generation was accelerated, and the very strong political decisions was made. That is the very innovative and transformative decision. In Japan, that we are in the phase to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of the low carbon or the non-carbon society, and suddenly that our society was hit by the COVID-19. And to promote SDGs, it is very important to monitor the progress of these initiatives, and the importance is becoming very clear. Every year, the Secretary General of the UN announced that progress report at the end of July. So currently, the Sustainable Development Goals indicators so are revised every year, though the targets are confirmed and fixed, and afterward efforts that we are very flexible in reviewing these indicators. So the number itself had been changed from the 244 to 247. There are several duplications, so that we set out the different measures or implementing the different indexes to evaluate our progress to hit the target. So with those indicators, we have been monitoring and watching where we are. As you can see here, so we are measuring that the progress, how good we are to comply with the global sustainable development goals. So today's main theme is that regional revitalization, because that's the COVID-19 wreaking havoc in the local economies. So that is in number 11, that 90% of the COVID-19 patients are located in the big cities, and in the area of the poverty. In the last several decades, for the first time in the last several decades, the poverty ratio started to pick up, so that you can see that how extensive and serious the COVID-19's impact in our society. So you can see those are the major points in the SDGs, so that 90% of the world's children and students is affected by COVID-19, and the digital divide is surfacing, so that negative impact is spreading in the education. And there are so many countries that billions of the people can access safety, managed water, sanitation services, and facilities for the basic hand washing. So you can see that the breadth and depth of the negative impact and the serious challenge of this catastrophe. And in addition, that the COVID is providing the great opportunity for transformation. In Japan, the supply chain was deteriorated and discontinued. So that rather than moving out our production facilities overseas, that we maintain the production base in Japan, and at the same time that the production patterns and and we have to reshape them into the sustainable ones, so that COVID-19 is there. It's a catastrophe of the humanity, but we cannot ignore it. We cannot deny it, and we have to turn it to the positive opportunities to reshape our society and change our mindset. In the United Nations also released this video. So this is the message is that we have to, stand up and to face a challenge, and SDGs would act the central role to address with this catastrophe. And the ranking from that 19, the ranking 19 to the ranking 17, so that's released in the independent organization 2 years ago in 2019, that the qualitative evaluation was released, that the report called GSDR, Global Development, so that in the purpose of going to the second phase of the SDGs, the 19 scientists are putting together the report. And I myself would be one of the committee members for the 2023 edition. So I would like to incorporate the development in Japan. So this is the essence of the transformation is getting to be understood.
And in various parts of the world, when we look at the corporations' activities, some measurement efforts are now being made. This is one of them. That's Nikkei ranking project that started this year. Announcement was made recently. So from outside the circle of SDGs efforts, such efforts for measuring SDGs achievement are now being made. And also financial aspect, you see the development is being quite active. For example, let's say UNMP, positive impact financial principle has been launched, and you look at the contents, which is SDGs, economy, society, environment. Among these three aspects, the negative possible impact of any of these will be measured. And also positive aspects as well. So not only the contribution, but more involvement or wider participation by many is also invited and also measured, as I mentioned in the other keynote speeches. So those are now covered. And by doing this, and the other aspect, if it is ignored, that is not really what we should aim for. So it should be really comprehensive. So XSDG Lab, which I belong to at the Keio University, this is something that we are working on. SDGs action list for companies. We make up a list of SDGs action for companies together with the other relevant organizations. And you see the URL for you to visit to take a look at it. In the interest of time, I will not go into detail at this moment. For example, say target 4.2, say by 2030, ensure that all girls and boys have access to high quality infant developmental support and care. So what about the company's efforts to that end? And it's quite difficult to specify those requirements. But, see in here, the supporting childcare and preschool education is one of the SDG actions which could be made by companies, and the local governments also could support those efforts as well for further contribution of SDGs development. And see, we are now in the decade of action. And so the SDGs may be considered as something abstract, but in order to make them more specific, I think such efforts will be quite helpful. Inside corporations, some specific efforts can be made. And also for this target 4.2, the local governments might consider providing subsidies, for example. So those are the findings that we can develop from the past experiences. And supply chain process is also involved in this evaluation. I hope that you will be interested in looking more closely. And today's forum's theme, the regional revitalization. I think this is more relevant ones. And for more details, I'm sure we will touch more details during this today's forum. And you see the model, I see the business is also numbered over 30. And so various attempts are now being made by local governments, and so that the other local governments could also learn from them. And the measurement is also quite important in that sense. The financial, for example, there's some efforts toward SDG goals. Various efforts are now being made by many organizations, including local governments. And by measuring those efforts, we can think about the supporting measures. And this is something that we came up 2019, for example, Financial Assistance Framework for Regional Revitalization. And various companies are now making efforts, and many are really struggling to figure out the best way possible. And this is the framework to help them figure out the possible ways. And you see the registration and the certification, the different steps. And then this is Nagano's case. And the targets are being set and commitment is made. And the monitoring the actual results in Nagano's project, taking advantage of the characteristics of the local community. And so the action list that we develop at our institute could also be helpful. So each local government may have a kind of a approach which may be different from each other. And also certification and registration systems may also be different from each other. So it could be diversified for each organizations. And when you speak of companies, now in the decade of actions, I think they are more committed to making activities for SDGs. This is just the gist of corporations' efforts. Midterm, long-term goals being set, and in-house specific goals have been set not only by large corporations but SMEs as well. One other point is that, say, for example, manufacturing industry, in addition to just making products, and they are getting to know or getting to be more interested in the upstream, for example, the raw materials, the entire supply chain, so to speak, so that they could be more sustainable. And then the cost could be reduced through such efforts. So many are participating with the increased awareness of the importance of SDGs. Well, the manufacturing cost for each component may be higher, but as a result of such efforts, the revenues may be higher. And we are seeing this the trend in fashion industry, for example. And innovative venture businesses or SMEs are also emerging in this field. And the linking manufacturers and the end users, and between the link, they will look at the various points for SDGs improvement, showing actual results. And leaving no one behind, that's the concept of SDGs. So the physically disabled or those that were marginalized will be more looked at by more companies as well. So the companies' our efforts are really diversified. So with those in mind, say the end of March this year, probably online basis, Japan SDGs action, which is shown on the screen, there will be planned. So I really invite the participants of this forum to take part in this Japan SDGs action as well. And the festival has been carried out in the past through one, and now this year is going to be held in this way. So this could be another hint for our further motivation to that end. This is my last slide. Say COVID-19 pandemic situation, it's quite making many people suffer. And well, rather because of that situation, the SDGs are even more importantly looked at for sustainable activities and existence of many organizations, including companies. So what's been happening or what has been around so far may not become sustainable. And also the good balance between the three aspects, economy, society, environment, will become even more important as elucidated in SDGs comment. So in that sense, with the COVID-19 situation, the interpretation and the possible ways to realize SDGs may be different in the future. See it actions or way of working and the demand of labor, the industry mixture will be different. So let us take a proactive look at those the changes or transformation, be it in local government or companies. I think it's quite important for all of us to think that way. And from my lab, we are going to share the list of our analysis of SDGs development soon for you to look at for your reference. So we have less than 10 years at the target year of SDGs. And the future is quite cloudy.
So the SDGs was born in the sense of the urgency, on a very serious recognition of that our mother planet is on the verge of the corrupt. And I think that the COVID-19 serves as the wake up call, and the great opportunity to reshape our society and transform our consciousness and awareness over the SDGs. That with that spirit, I would like the corporations to do business and administrations to implement policies. With that, I would like to conclude my keynote speech. Thank you very much for your engagement. Thank you. Professor Kaniye, thank you very much for your presentation. Really appreciate it.